Hi, I'm Marianne Obst. I am the complex abdomen specialist at Regions Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota, and this is Fistula Fun Friday. It's a video on how to use the fistula funnel to isolate around a fistula stoma that's a little bit tinier so that the wound crown wouldn't be quite so great. So we started this YouTube channel and website to share education amongst all of us wonderful wound care people. So I hope you enjoy the video, and if it is helpful to you, you can hit subscribe and then you get updates when we make new videos. Let me show you an example of using the fistula funnel on a gal that has a terrible fistula problem. You can see that in the middle of her abdominal wound, she has a teeny tiny little fistula that's causing all sorts of havoc. Of course, she has an ileostomy at the 9 o'clock position that is downstream from the fistula. The first thing we have to do is get her nice and clean. I like to use VAC wound cleanser. I think it's really helpful. And then we're going to put a barrier ring around the entire thing and then drape over the top of the barrier ring with clear drape, making that seal, that internal seal, right at this point here. So you want to make sure that you set your barrier ring back a ½ centimeter so that you can actually put the barrier drape right over the top. We have a nice non-adherent contact layer with silver on it, so it's antimicrobial. We're going to finish the barrier ring all the way around, put in our negative pressure foam. This is standard foam, and then our fistula funnel so that the little fistula right here is so cute, is hiding from the negative pressure. This looks like a lot, but it's really super helpful. So once you deploy negative pressure, and we're setting the negative pressure off to the side because some of these patients that are pretty fragile, we don't want the negative pressure right on the abdominal wound, but also for her, her wound just wasn't big enough. And so we just would track it over to the side, keeping it out of the way for the pouching system. And then I like to put a barrier ring on top of the clear drape because the pouches just don't like to stick to that clear drape. And then a pouching system right up and over the top of that, angled to the direction that the patient wants it. And like for her, she was in bed a fair amount, so we kind of angled it a little bit laterally just so it's easier for the nurses to dump it. And then I'm going to cut this pouch back so I can see the barrier ring underneath. And you can see even deployed how cute this little fistula is sitting right in the middle of the funnel. And then I'm going to add another barrier ring over the top to actually seal that edge and really work these two together. I didn't show it in this presentation, but a lot of times I'll put a little bit of paste in the center and then a whole bunch of Stoma powder all over this sticky stuff. So when I close this lid, that the lid doesn't stick to the barrier ring, which is super important. And I personally just love Stoma powder. So it's like the favorite part of putting on a fistula pouch. So one technique tip is that you want to cut along the line that you can see here, and that'll form the little skirt that allows you to get a really good seal. So that's just an important part. No matter where you're cutting it, whether it's here, you know, up here, you want to cut on that little bend because that'll give you the best seal. Now we're going to do a hands-on component. The first thing I would do with this little fistula, like you guys saw, is I would take my wash and I would wash the wound and all the peri-wound skin and dry it nice. And then I would use my Cavilon Advanced wand and I'd put it all the way around the edging. That's super protective for the skin. And then I like this Hollister 78 barrier ring to put along the edge because you get a lot of distance with this. You can kind of make it like a, you know, curly Q. You can get all the way around things. Everyone has a different way of doing this. Some people leave the backing on, some people take the backing off. I'm gonna take it off, girl, but many people do a really great job leaving it on. Remember, we're gonna set this a ½ centimeter back from the wound edge. And that's so we can make that nice seal with our clear drape. Now we have the barrier ring all the way around the edges and we wanna kind of mold it so it's nice and flat. And then I like to take strips of drape, just drape it all the way around. We're gonna drape over the edge. Now these drape strips do not curve, so you really need to just have a bunch of strips and go all the way around. So now we've got the edging done, barrier set ½ centimeter back, draped all the way around. So the next thing is to get our fistula funnel and we'll take it out of its bag. Directions are on the back just in case. And if you look close at this, there's like a little line you can see right along this edge, and that's where you want to trim it when you're going to do this size, which is about the right size for the patient that we have. We can cut right here and kind of make your entrance. And then you just want to follow that line all the way through. It's going to leave a soft little skirt, and that's what's going to help you get your seal, which is really nice. So this is what it looks like. This is the top side, bottom side, and then you can see the edging. So that will go just like that. The next thing you need to do is figure out where your fistula is on the wound. And so what I do is I put my hand where the fistula is, and then where my thumb is where I start the cutting. I start small. So you can see I kind of cut to the side, so I'm just going to grab where I need to cut again. There. And now I got a nice spot for my fistula to be. So then you're going to take this back up. I always just keep somebody around with suction just in case it goes all over. If it does go all over, I'm going to rewash and clean everything. So the next thing I'll do is shove this into the foam. It's not a delicate thing. It's kind of more or less a shove. Measure again. Remember on the lady, we had a contact layer down, which is totally fine to do if you're not trying to clean up the wound. So with this Holy dressing, it'll clean up the debris in the wound. And so I'm going to put that down because a lot of these wounds are pretty dirty from being in a wound manager or something where they have effluent all over. And then I'm going to put my ring just like this. So you can kind of see it through, right? Just right over the top. Then I'm going to put my funnel right where I want it to be. And this is always where I get stressed because now we're in that last little leg and you just want to get it done and you don't want any mistakes to happen, like have stool come all over. When I'm using this two-piece drape like this, I always break the center section open, and I'm sure you guys all do the same thing. I'm just like preaching to the choir here. So then when I get this one in my hands like this, I'm cracking this whole edge because if you don't, it wants to stick to itself or it curls up and that kind of thing. So you want to really crack that edge all the way down. And then you have complete and utter control. So you flip it over, you have complete control because you're holding on to the edges, and then you can go straight down. This is where I just pray the fistula doesn't all of a sudden erupt because then you kind of got to start over. But I usually have somebody on suction ready to go. And I try and work as quickly as I can to get my access hole cut. So then if the effluent comes through, I don't care because everything's safe. So this is the point where I'm like, oh, I'm starting to sweat, nervous. So I'm going to quickly cut this and make sure my suction friend is ready to go. In the patient, we actually offset the track pad onto intact skin, bridged it over, but because this is a tray, we have to put it in place. One of the things I want to show you is when you're using this drape and the foam, they really like each other a lot. So I usually clip all the way around because I don't want to lose any of this foam underneath there because then sometimes you can get blockage alarms. So I'd like to make a nice big hole, almost as big as this little guy. I like the tail to go a direction that's not going to get entangled with her Foley. I try to put it on a side that makes sense. Maybe there's an IV pole over there or something like that. I'm going to start my negative pressure pump. I always kind of give all my dressings just a little bit of love on the edges, just to make sure any of those little seams come down nicely. At this point, we have a pretty good seal. But if we wanted to, you can always add a little paste to the inside. It's going to burn away as the effluent comes into this area, but it really can help get that initial seal. So let's at least pretend that we have a seal problem. Right now we don't, but let's pretend. If we did, I would put this all the way around that nice little stoma, and it's totally fine if it touches the stoma. You don't have to have it clear the stoma because, like I said, the effluent will just eat it away anyways. Just to make sure that my pouch sits nicely on there, I add what I call an insurance policy. So I just take a little bit of this and I put it all around on top of the fistula funnel, and it just makes sure that nothing leaks between the fistula funnel and the pouch because I hate to take the whole vac down when it's just literally the junction between the pouch. So that looks very nice. We're kind of going to work these guys in together. Then the most amazing thing that you're going to see is the new Hollister high output pouch. I am so in love with this pouch. I put it on all my fistula patients or my high output ostomy patients. So we have a nice seal. There's no negative pressure on the pouch. That's super important. You never want to have the pouch sucked down because that means you have a leak in there, right? And so we know that that fistula is totally safe. Now look at this. Oh my gosh, look at the size of that output. They have this amazing bag and it hooks in. It's super easy to do. You just push it on and then, yeah, lock it. Is that the greatest ever? It's never gonna come apart. You don't have to tape it. And then let's say they have to go to PT. No problem. You just take it right off and cork it and out the door they go. Thanks for watching. I hope that this was helpful for you for Fistula Fun, and have a wonderful Fistula Fun Friday. Remember, there's more information for you at the complexwounds.com website, and you can always send in suggestions, or if you have better ways of doing things, I'd love to hear from you. So have a great Friday.